Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at ihatecritics.net, everyone'sacriticpodcast.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle there is CriticsPod. This week, I'll be announcing the winner of the Echo Boomers movie, everybody who participated. So be on the lookout for that. We're also on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Alexa, Ghana, all your podcatchers. Subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. We'll read the review on the air or any comments that we see. If we miss something, let us know. We'll try to check that out as well. Then patreon.com/criticspod is the best way to help support the podcast. Go there, and we're flirting around with the idea of video. Maybe we'll put it exclusive to Patreon. Maybe we'll put it on YouTube. Maybe we'll put it on Facebook. Well, we're flirting around with it, trying to figure it out. We're trying to give our Patreon subscribers more than we have in the past. The Thanksgiving episode is out there. Look forward to a I Spit on Your Grave bonus podcast around Christmas time, or maybe a little after.
The perfect Christmas present.
Totally appropriate.
I spit on your grave, Santa Claus.
How many have you gone through it yet?
I have not. I'm going to do it next week, and then to give myself enough time to get it to you.
And if you'd rather, I might even have I think I have a copy of it, or is it a special copy?
I mean, they sent me a special edition package of it that has this movie, and then the sequel, the modern sequel, and the documentary. So I'm not sure. I know the modern sequel is available. And I'm not sure about the documentary is the issue.
All right. Well, I'll take a look.
And again, you may not have time. You may not have time to watch all of that. So.
I'll find time. I'll see what I can. Maybe I'll look on Amazon and see if it's available. Because the documentary, I may have actually. Is it older? Has it been around a while?
I'm not exactly certain how old it is.
Because I do remember. I've listened to the commentary with Joe Bob Briggs and the director. So two separate commentaries, and I've seen the movie. I tried really hard to like it, and I've seen the remake.
I tried to be open with it. I wrote in my review, I was writing about how I wanted to, I wanted to believe that even somebody I respected and loved as much as Roger Ebert was just kind of, overreacting. Like, oh, he's old. He's seen something here that he's overreacting to. It can't be that bad. And I watched it specifically with going into it with that attitude of it can't possibly be as bad as he's making it out to be. And then it was. It was exactly as bad as he made it out to be. And I hated it desperately. So what I have in the package is I Spit on Your Grave, I Spit on Your Grave Deja Vu, Growing Up with I Spit on Your Grave, and another book disc of bonus features. So that's what I don't know if you're looking at the video, Bob. There it is in the video. We're on Skype, so.
Yeah, for now. Like I said, we're looking at going to video for maybe Patreon, maybe YouTube. We'll all see how that works out. But be on the lookout for I Spit on Your Grave special bonus episode on Patreon. And I don't know when the Thanksgiving episode is going to go to the regular listeners. I may make you wait till next year. We'll see. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm on Amazon looking for I Spit on Your Grave. There's also our TeePublic page, ihatecritics.net, up in the right-hand corner. TeePublic, if you want to get some podcast merch. I'll be sure to try to wear as much as possible.
Yeah, that would be great if you did. While you're doing that, I can tell you a disturbing story.
What?
So I love watching YouTube videos, and I love searching for disturbing things on the internet. But I found something today that disturbed me on a level that I wasn't expecting. This guy on YouTube, his name is Wang. He's got this weird show where he goes into bizarre features of internet history, and he did one today on a character from Sonic the Hedgehog that has a following in the furry community. And basically there was this urban legend that this guy created a a realistic version of this Sonic character using human bone skeleton.
Really?
Basically, you see a picture of the skeleton, and then you see a picture of the finished product, and it's clear that there is a skeleton inside this stuffed, furry thing. Now, what I find disturbing about this is that it's not an actual skeleton, which would be disturbing in its own way. I find it actually more disturbing that this man went into the woods, chopped down a tree, and used the wood from that tree to carve human-looking bones, that he then put inside his furry. And then this project has taken him 20 years to complete. All because he wants to sleep with a Sonic the Hedgehog character. That disturbs me on a level that I can barely describe. I've listened to serial killers confess murder who haven't left me as disquieted as this man's story.
Wow. Man, the YouTube rabbit hole.
Right?
Gotta stay out of that thing. I think I found the special edition package you got.
It's from Ronin Flicks.
Yeah. So you said a producer gave this to you?
Yeah.
It's like a $70 item here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you better take care of that thing.
I also got a poster and a refrigerator magnet.
Oh, you better use it. Put it on the fridge.
Yeah, I'm going to. Because I love this movie so much.
Next time you're hungry, it'll remind you of it.
It's a great diet control. Look at that and lose appetite.
But looking forward to that when it comes out, when we finally release it. But all these things are available to rent on Amazon. I did see that, so maybe I'll get a head start on it. Let's jump to our regular show, regular week, and we'll start.
After I've chased everybody away with that story.
Let's start with the Netflix film Hillbilly Elegy.
Hillbilly Elegy stars Amy Adams and Close, and directed by Ron Howard, and is the story of a young man named J.D. Vance, who pulled himself up by his bootstraps to get out of his backwoods home in Kentucky/Ohio and move on to Yale Law or whatever it is, Harvard Law. I can't remember which one it was. I don't care. And basically that's the story. His mom was addicted to meth. He was raised by his mamaw, which is a thing. Glenn Close plays mamaw.
My niece and nephew call not my mom, but their other grandma mamaw. So,
oh, well, that's lovely.
Yeah.
It's not a term I've ever heard before.
I had neither until that.
And yeah, it's basically a lot of backwoods stereotypes turned up to 11 in terms of volume. I mean, not in terms of over-the-top caricature. Because, we're talking about two really great actresses, Glenn Close and Amy Adams, and a lot of awards caliber talent there. Unfortunately, it's dedicated to something that just isn't worthy of them. And that is this story about a man who is basically just such an empty vessel of a character that anything they do was going to end up being incredibly over the top. I mean, anything compared to the central character of J.D. Vance looks like a clown in comparison because he is so bland and so empty and so dull. You care so little for this guy who is the center of this story that it makes Amy Adams and Glenn Close look bad. It looks like they're going just completely over the top and back. Amy Adams looks like she's chewing the damn scenery compared to this guy who is the center of the story. And it goes for either whether he plays a kid or is an adult. The character is just dull. He's not interested. And that lack of a center, that lack of a focus at the heart of the film ruins everything around it. So it doesn't matter if there's a good work being done by Glenn Close or Amy Adams, they look like clowns in comparison to this empty vessel at the center of the movie. And it doesn't help that Ron Howard has directed this with the classic mawkishness that people have come to know of Ron Howard. This is really, I want to respect and like him. I really do. I think he does make good movies. I really stand by Frost Nixon as being a very good movie. But when you look back at his recent work, it's not great. It really isn't. I mean, Rush is a terrible movie about auto racing, but incredibly dull. And he tends to really bland out his stories in a way that is becoming ever more evident the older he gets.
Well, yeah, I mean, he Opie Taylors everything. That's. I watched a little bit of it. My wife's actually watching it now, so if we have any issues with sound, listeners, that's why. I thought the editing early on was bad. Like it just kind of jumped around a lot. Or I don't know. It moved. It was too choppy almost. Like you didn't. Which almost made the performances worse. And again, I only watched a few minutes of it, so it wasn't like I watched a lot. But it just seemed to cut a lot to different people talking, and it didn't seem to flow well, at least early on. So I don't know if it was like that the whole time. But I went down the Rotten Tomatoes rabbit hole and read like every review, trying to figure out what went wrong. And the positive reviews were, it wasn't full of fat like a lot of other straight to Netflix movies are, because directors just spend a lot of money. But including your review, a lot of the reviews are the main problem with this movie is it's not bad enough.
Right?
It's
Yes.
not good, but it's too competent to hate. It's just kind of annoying. And then is there kind of a Hollywood elite thing with this too? Like they're just really shitting on the South, or is that not?
You remember when we were talking about the trailer for Run and how Hollywood tends to portray poor people basically by having bad wigs?
Yeah.
That's kind of what we got going on here. Is a series of bad wigs to signify when people are poor. That's basically how Hollywood sees you. Is that you wear T-shirts and you have bad hair.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, the audience score is significantly higher than the critic score, but it's not that high. It's only like at 50-60%, if I remember right. That's how low the critic score is.
It's like a below average country song. Like it's it's competent enough that you're not surprised that it's on the radio, but you always turn the channel when it comes on.
Right. It's like, it's a well-known artist that you know, it's just not very good for him or her. All right. Well, if you saw it, let us know on Facebook what you thought of it. I don't intend to watch it, especially after reading your review and everybody else's. But let's move on to the HBO Max film Superintelligence. Superintelligence
stars Melissa McCarthy as Carol, who turns out to be what at least in one artificial intelligence believes is the most average human being on the planet. This artificial intelligence is given the voice of James Corden, but it could have any voice. It's not a man or a woman. It's an artificial intelligence that was founded at a dating app and came to life. It gained sentient life, and it decided that it could take over the entire world and destroy it if it chooses to. But it decides instead to play a game where it's going to take the most average human being on the planet and have that person try and show that humanity deserves an opportunity to continue to exist. Very, very high concept, and one that the movie doesn't really do much with. There's never any sense of danger involved. There's never really any sense that the world is going to end at any point. It teases it, but it's never happened. You know that this is in the end what it turns out to be is rather bland romantic comedy. This is directed by Ben Falcone, who is Melissa McCarthy's husband, but also the director of Life of the Party, which is a movie I'm one of the few people who actually liked. That we had enough good jokes and enough really good characters that I actually really invested in it and enjoyed it. It's flawed, but it was funny. It had enough jokes in it to work. This one doesn't have jokes. This one's not nearly as funny as that movie. and where it's lacking is in really good supporting characters. I like Brian Tyree Henry; he's good, but he's really not well used here. He plays Daryl's best friend, and other IT guy who is helping to try and figure out what the AI is going to do next. And then there's Bobby Cannavale, who he's really bad in this. I mean, he's really bad in this. He just seems completely off. He seems unengaged. He seems like he's barely learned the script and is kind of almost riffing at times. He's really dull. And I've not said that about him as an actor before. I've always kind of appreciated his unique energy in the past, but here he does not seem particularly engaged, and especially opposite Melissa McCarthy, they don't seem to have much chemistry, and much of the movie relies on them having a lot of chemistry. And because of that, there's a lot that's just left sort of bland and unfunny in Superintelligence, and in the end, I didn't care for it.
Yeah, I didn't hate it as much. It's PG, so we watched it with the whole family, and it worked for that, I guess. I mean, it like you said, it's very simple. It's very safe. You do have Melissa McCarthy, and if you like Melissa McCarthy a lot, she does kind of make up for a lot of the shortcomings and with everything in it. That said, there's a million Melissa McCarthy, not a million, but however many movies she's made, give or take, that are better than this. But I found it watchable. I particularly like the Ken Griffey Jr. stuff just because he was on screen. Not that necessarily anything cool happened, but it was like, hey, Ken Griffey Jr.'s there. This is awesome. But I don't know. It was fine. I mean, you watch the trailer. The trailer is a lot funnier than the movie is. I think all the jokes in the trailer are in the movie, and or all the jokes in the movie are in the trailer. I'm sorry, I had it backwards. But I mean, it was fine. But I can't really go much better than that.
Yeah,
my kids probably don't even remember it. That's definitely forgettable. But
yeah,
I want it to be better, but I didn't hate it either. That said, there's not a whole lot to say about it. So
no, not really. Not really.
So you're ready to
just kind of there.
All right. Well, let's move over to Hulu then and see what their movie was this week. Happiest Season.
Happiest Season was written and directed by Clea Duvall and stars Kristen Stewart and Mackenzie Davis as a couple who are going back to Mackenzie Davis's family for Christmas. The only thing is that her family doesn't know she's gay, and she's not told them about her this person that she's in love with, who she's been living with for a year. They think that Kristen Stewart's just a roommate, and this is complicated, of course, because she'd said that she'd actually come out to her family, but she hadn't, and so she finally does convince Kristen Stewart to go along with this just to kind of get through the holidays. And naturally, this doesn't go very well. Trying to keep her in the closet and keep their relationship a secret is a big mistake, as obviously. And this complicates their entire weekend. The family is really colorful. Lots of really wonderful character actors. Mary Steenburgen and Garber. I can't remember his first name.
I don't know.
Vincent Garber. A really, really great actor, and Alison Brie plays her sister. The co-writer of the movie plays her other sister, who's also very funny. And then there's Eugene Levy's kid, Dan Levy, who is absolutely fantastic. Like, I'm not joking here. I know this is a character that we've seen in other movies, the supposed gay best friend. But honestly, there's a moment in this movie that I think is maybe my favorite moment of any movie in 2020, where he gives Kristen Stewart this big, important speech in a big important moment about the difficulties that every gay person has gone through in that moment of coming out, and it's deeply moving, and it brought me to tears. It was so good, and with a character who is so broad and so recognizable from other movies, it's really something that an actor could be that good to develop that kind of power in this kind of role. I was really impressed with him. Throughout, he was fantastic, stealing scenes throughout. Aubrey Plaza is also in this. Like, this is an amazing cast. And then you have Mackenzie Davis and Kristen Stewart at the center, who are wonderful. They're just completely believable, romantic, sweet, and definitely dramatic when they're incidentally hurting each other. It's really just a lovely movie. I really enjoyed this.
Here's the deal. That scene, you're right. I agree with that, and I agree with the overall message of it. I thought was really good and powerful. I thought Mackenzie Davis was terrible, and I like her a lot. I thought her and Kristen Stewart from the Jump Street had no chemistry, with Kristen Stewart trying really hard. Like, Mackenzie Davis didn't even look like she wanted to kiss her when they had kissing scenes early on. This is before they even got to the parents' house, where that would start to be expected. So this was like from Jump Street. And then on the car ride, you start with the lie, and I'm not buying the relationship. I never bought it from the get-go. And then you throw in the lie, and kind of the way they established Kristen Stewart's character immediately, I just never bought that she would stick around. And throw that away, and then this movie works, and everything you said is right. But I just never bought into their relationship from the get-go. And that, and it was largely due to, I feel like Mackenzie Davis was, when they got to the house, with the parents' house, and then it kind of turned into a meet the parents type thing. And that was fine, and it worked. I just had, the premise before that, I never bought into, so I couldn't get into the rest of it. But when I put that on the back burner and just kind of accept it, you're right, that is a very powerful scene. The whole end of the movie is really, really good. I love Alison Brie. I love Aubrey Plaza. Dan Levy is amazing. But because I didn't buy anything, or I didn't buy the overall premise early on, or what got them to where they needed to go, it was hard for me to say I liked it. But at the same time, there was some really good stuff in it, which was what was hard for me to accept. Or not accept, but hard for me to totally dismiss this movie. I think it's worth watching. And at the same time, name a romantic comedy where you don't buy into something. All of them, especially when you're me. I'm not, that's not my genre. So,
right.
It's sometimes you have to put it on the, not look at it so seriously and analyze it too much. So there's a little bit of that here too. I'm not a rom-com guy. Generally, there's some that work for me, but I'm not the demographic for this. So if I get past that, there is some really good stuff here. I keep getting hung up on I didn't believe in this scenario from like Jump Street, and it is what it is. But otherwise, everything you said, I agree with completely. And it's on Hulu.
I mean, I can't change your mind on that. That's a completely
right.
fair opinion to hold. I mean, it's completely reasonable. I get what you're saying. I did buy into it, and thus it works a lot more for me. But I get what you're saying. Yeah. This is a really great year for Kristen Stewart, by the way. In case people hadn't noticed, this and Underwater, she's got two of my secret favorite movies of the year. Like this, neither one maybe will make my top 10. But I love both of them though, and she's amazing in them. And most people, maybe this one's getting good reviews, I guess. Most people forgot about Underwater already.
Yeah, and I do think in a lot of ways she really did try to carry this, and she worked completely for me. It was just Mackenzie Davis that I had a hard time with, and I love her. Tully was amazing, and she was a big reason why that was amazing. And she's done a lot of other great things, and the middle part of the movie in the end, she was really good in. It was just early on, I was just like, she doesn't look comfortable in this role, like in this relationship, and at least that's what I was seeing. So, but
she's struggling lately,
really, with
Terminator and then the Turning earlier this year. This was at least I was happy to see her in a movie I liked. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right, Fatman.
Fatman. Oh man. Mel Gibson stars in Fatman as Kris Kringle. For some reason, this movie can't say Santa Claus. Is that a copyrighted term? Why can't they say Santa Claus? I don't understand why they can't say Santa, but they don't. He's playing Santa as a sort of head of a corporation that worries about government contracts to continue doing Christmas every year. He's dealing with that while he's also got this kid who he's put on the naughty list who he gives coal to, and the kid decides that he wants to hire someone to kill Santa Claus. This is pretty typical of this kid. He's hired a hitman before to do harm to others, who, like a girl in his class who beat him in a science fair. He hired Walton Goggins, who plays the hitman, to scare her, kidnap her, and put a good fright into her. And then when he gets coal from Santa, he decides to hire this guy to kill Santa, Kris Kringle. And that's basically the plot, is that Walton Goggins' character is going to go to the North Pole, wherever that is, and try and kill Kris Kringle. And meanwhile, he's dealing with this whole corporate thing about his workers and a government contract. And I guess he's going to have the elves make weapons part-time when they're not making toys. I don't know. It was really an extraneous, unnecessary bit of plot, because there's not really enough in either of these plots to make a full movie. They basically squish together these two things that don't really matter to each other to extend this movie into an actual feature length. And really, the scenes of this are very clear, and it's really, aside from just the overall notion, just the stupid joke of hiring Mel Gibson to play Kris Kringle, that wears off very quickly, that joke. And from there, what's left? There's not much left here for me.
Yeah, it's like, I thought the cast, everybody really, Walton Goggins, the kid, Mel Gibson, was making a different movie than the director and the writer were making. Shane Black or, Richard Donner or somebody, I don't know if this is in that Kiss Kiss Bang Bang Lethal Weapon world, where with the same premise and the same idea, just written better, this could have been entertaining. I liked the way they were playing the characters, but I was just bored by what was going on. It drove me nuts. I liked the joke of Mel Gibson being Santa Claus, but because nothing happened, you're right, it wears off. And instead of it being fun, it just kind of got boring, and it really was disappointing. This should have been way more fun than it was.
I thought it was going to be a black comedy. I mean, you've hired Mel Gibson to be Santa Claus. That's already dark, a bit of dark humor just off the bat.
Right.
But then the movie is very funny. It really isn't funny at all. Nobody seems to be going for a joke. Like everything, here you have this bit where Santa is running a corporation that needs corporate funding. That's a pretty dark, comic joke that nobody does anything with, because he's the only character who appears to be at all concerned about this. Like, none of the government guys are even characters, so you're not using them as a comic foil. And he's got his wife, but she's, again, a very straightforward, very serious character who doesn't have any jokes to tell about this. So that plot never becomes funny. Walton Goggins appears to have some quirks, but they're never really well explored, and thus he never becomes funny. And really, the kid is just irritating more than anything. He's never funny, so nothing in the movie is funny aside from the idea of somebody hiring a hitman to kill Santa Claus, which is a darkly comic premise you would think would pay off and never does.
Yeah, just really disappointing. It should have been fantastic. It should have been fun, and instead it just a movie we probably would have been like, oh, this will be fun to see, but never comes to the theater, and so we never see it, and then we don't have to deal with it because there's other movies in the theater, because there's not. It seemed fun to see. And
I'm going to say this, I think, and this is just me fantasy booking this movie, but you want to know how to make this movie work, even as it is, hire Nicolas Cage. Don't hire Mel Gibson. That's a one-note joke. Hire Nicolas Cage and make him just be crazy Nick Cage, doing crazy Nick Cage shit as Santa Claus, and this premise could actually kind of work. Because he would make it funny just by being Nicolas Cage. Mel Gibson no longer has the ability to be funny just by being Mel Gibson the way he did in the Lethal Weapon movies. He doesn't have that anymore. He's grizzled. He's tired. He's kind of bored. He doesn't have that anymore. Nicolas Cage could make this garbage into funny just by being Nicolas Cage.
I agree and disagree. I mean, Nicolas Cage could, you're right, with a bad direct, no matter what, just Nicolas Cage being in this exact same movie Nicolas Cage is going to make somehow entertaining. But I like the way Mel Gibson played it. I just wish you had somebody better, moving it that way. I'd rather watch Martin Riggs as Santa Claus than even an old man. I don't care. He still had a lot of those same quirks, the way he would drink and do things, the looks on his face. I loved all that. I just didn't like the movie because it was boring. And if you had some better dialogue, when I said the cast, I was wrong. I thought Mel Gibson's Walton Goggins and the kid were trying to play a dark comedy, but you're right. There were all the other actors in it. When you watch Lethal Weapon or Kiss Kiss Bang Bang or all these movies in that Shane Black kind of universe, the side characters are memorable. You reckon, yeah. And then you start recognizing them in other movies because of that movie.
Yeah,
and that if you have that in this movie, then I think it works. And I would rather see that movie than the Nicolas Cage one. But you're right, Nicolas Cage automatically says what this piece of trash is. But I think it's
at least with some energy. He brings us. He would bring some life to this. There's no life to this.
It's just boring. It's just a bad script. It's bad direction, and it just shouldn't have been made.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Come on, phone.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized, undisputed classic.
Torn Curtain.
Torn Curtain, and we chose this because later on we're going to talk about a movie that turned 30 this week called Mr. and Mrs. Bridge, starring Paul Newman. And I figured, we've got this obsession recently with Hitchcock, exploring some unusual Hitchcock stuff that I thought, why not? Paul Newman and Hitchcock makes sense, right? So Torn Curtain is a 1966 suspense thriller about a physicist played by Paul Newman who is attending a conference with his fiancée / assistant. How do I not remember her name?
Julie Andrews.
Andrews. He decides that he tells her that he's got to leave this conference kind of unexpectedly after he receives an unusual message from somebody, and he won't tell her any more about it. She comes to find that he's actually not leaving to go where he said he was going, but he's going to communist East Berlin. And she's obviously very shocked about this. She wants to know what's going on, so she follows him. She gets a ticket to East Berlin, and she's actually on the same plane as him and follows him to where he's going, and only to find that when they arrive at the airport, he's being met by the secret police and the press. They're there to actually cover his arrival, which is strange. And it turns out he's there to defect from the United States to East Berlin, which in 1966 is a big deal. An American physicist going to East Berlin, going to the communists, is a very big deal. He's going there, he claims, because the American government has shut down his experiment in which he's trying to build a bomb that could destroy a nuclear weapon safely and basically end the use of nuclear weapons entirely, because both sides would be able to destroy a nuclear weapon with this technology. He claims that he wants to help the communists achieve this before the Americans, so that the Russians would have an advantage and essentially win the war. His actual thing, of course, is that this is the big twist is that he's not actually a defector. He's there on behalf of the American government. He's trying to make sure that the Russians aren't able to get this technology before the Americans. That's the twist. But unfortunately, with her following him there, now his escape from East Berlin is going to be very complicated. They were going to get one person out of the country. Now they have to get two out. And that's the big centerpiece of the rest of the movie, which is a big chase scene to try and get him and her out of East Berlin to safety. This is another unfortunate revelation for me about another Hitchcock movie that I don't really love, because I've really loved Hitchcock my entire life, obviously, but I've always, stuck to the classics, The Birds, Psycho, North by Northwest, Rear Window, The Greats, Vertigo.
Vertigo, yeah.
brilliant guy, but he's got a lot of movies that are lesser known, like this one. And there's a reason why Torn Curtain isn't as well known as those other movies, and that is that as good as he is at creating suspense within a scene, as amazing as he is at amping up tension in a scene, and he's a master of that. This movie repeats that formula so often that instead of being excited, I got tired. I got exhausted. I was worn out. I also just kind of became skeptical for the first time. I was skeptical of watching Hitchcock characters find their way out of these situations, because at a certain point, he amps up the seeming inability of his characters to escape to a point where you just don't buy it anymore. There's a scene in the theater in the movie where he's surrounded them in such a fashion that the notion that they could possibly escape from this just seems impossible. And yes, of course they're going to, but it just doesn't feel believable. And I was really out of the movie by that point because I was just so exhausted by the final 40 minutes is just him creating a scene, amping up the tension in that scene to an unbearable limit, and not letting it up throughout. And like I said, I just got tired. It became like this marathon that I was running the last 40 minutes that I just didn't wait for it to be over.
I agree 100%. It's not that the movie's bad. It's almost like he was too aware of his talent, and he was like, I'm just going to go all out. And it is, and it's complicated. There's so much going on, but at the same time, it's like the whole pie stuff was almost like, really, that's what we're talking about with nuclear weapons? This pie? I mean, it ends up making sense, but still, at one point, I'm just kind of like, really? That's part of the nuclear code. But you're right. It's just so exhausting that you start to kind of, it takes you out of the movie, and therefore you stop. I didn't even care when they were in the theater. It's like it's going on. I'm like, I know they're getting out of this, and then when they yell fire, I'm like, okay. But I didn't care. I mean, I'm just watching from a distance, and it turned into homework, and it's kind of a shame. But at the same time, I'd never heard of this movie, and I've heard of a lot of Hitchcock movies, and I've heard of a lot of Paul Newman movies. And when you don't hear of a movie like that, then there must be a reason for it. And it's just not memorable. And I don't know, would it have worked better with a different actor? I thought Paul Newman was fine. Paul Newman I tend to enjoy him, and I don't know, probably with directors who aren't as good. So he can just, go and be Paul Newman. He was a little bit here, but I don't know. It was fine, I guess. Just more homework. It definitely doesn't hold up to the modern audience. I don't know what it did back then, but it's certainly not Vertigo.
Yeah, no, that's very true. There's a criminal aspect of this to what he does to Julie Andrews. She is basically functional throughout this entire movie. That's it. She is not a character. She is just a function of this plot because she's there to create the complication that creates the drama for the escape. And that's it. And in my written review, I actually compared her to luggage. And literally at the end of the movie, she's actually luggage. It couldn't have been more appropriate because she was treated like luggage throughout this movie. And that's a real shame. She's brilliant. And this movie does not do anything to make well use of her.
I wonder if that's where the metaphor about, calling a wife baggage came from. This movie. Yeah. And, I know Hitchcock is, has a reputation with how he treated women, but at least their characters tend to matter in most of his movies, Yeah. They're very relevant to the plot. And I guess in a way she's relevant to the plot, but as baggage. You're 100% right there as well. Man, I didn't think about it like that, but
it takes a while to realize that she has absolutely nothing to do.
And the lack, and Paul Newman doesn't really get pissed at her. There wasn't any huge, I don't know. Not that it stuck out, at least. Maybe I was already out of it at that point, but when he shows up, he was more shocked than angry, which you would think he'd be a little more angry. But maybe I missed it. But I don't know. You're right. It's a hard one to watch. It definitely is more homework than I want out of Hitchcock.
I mean, and if you really want to drill down on this plot, I mean, he could have told her what he was about to do, and it wouldn't have really harmed anything. I mean, who was she going to tell? Going to risk? Was she going to tell everybody about it and cause them to get caught? What was she going to do? Just tell her about it before you leave, and swear her to secrecy, or don't bring her on the trip at all. Which he points out very early on. He didn't have to bring her on the trip at all. He just wanted somebody to bone.
Right. Yeah, that's very true as well. Yeah, just go ahead and skip this one. Just rewatch Vertigo or any of them, really. Psycho. Hell, go back and watch Rope or something like that. There's a lot of Rear Window. They're all great. Just this one's tough.
I really wanted this to work. I wanted this to be like a hidden Hitchcock gem that, like maybe just nobody talks about it because it isn't, one of the high profile ones. And,
yeah.
It's not nearly as much of a bummer as Marnie, which is a much bigger bummer than this, but it's in the realm.
Yeah, the fact that what is it? 68 that it came out, like in the late 60s.
That was 66.
66. That was really what made me think, well, this could be, easier to watch than a lot of the good ones. And yeah, I was actually excited about the fact that it was the new, kind of in that era of when I started really getting into movies. And no, just speaking of that kind of attitude, what about Mr. and Mrs. Bridge?
Yeah, this isn't a great week for Paul Newman fans. Mr. and Mrs. Bridge stars Paul Newman and his wife, Joanne Woodward, and is directed by the team of Merchant Ivory, which right away you just know you're in for some homework here. I don't know if you know much about Merchant Ivory,
no,
Bob, but I dreaded anytime I heard the name Merchant Ivory as a kid because I just knew that this was going to be some dull, austere drama about characters silently longing for each other, and it was just, and it always seemed to turn out that way. Their movies are incredible homework. I'm not sure what anybody thought was cinematic about this story. This is based off of a novel by Evan Connell, who's a beloved and respected writer who I'm guessing on the page must be really entertaining. Like he must have a really great insight into characters and a great insight into description, because this movie only seems to illustrate that not every book can be turned into a movie. This is dull. This is remarkably dull. This is driving Miss Daisy level of dull. Nothing happens in this movie. I'm going to illustrate just how dull this is in a moment by describing something that does happen in this movie that I think I've already told you about.
Yeah, you told me.
But basically, the movie opens on a scene of just Mr. and Mrs. Bridge in their backyard. He's fussing over the barbecue. She's talking about the heat and the locusts. And that's the scene. That's what happens in this movie. And I'm fine giving a movie time to do something like, there's a movie called Somewhere, directed by Sofia Coppola, that many people hate because they say it's just boring and nothing happens. But nothing happens to a very specific degree in that movie, to where she's making a point out of not doing anything. And it becomes clear as you watch the movie that she's specifically making these scenes mundane to highlight their very mundanity, and they become something more as the movie goes on. This movie doesn't develop anything from this. This scene does not belong in a movie because nothing in it furthers the plot. Nothing in it says anything about the dynamic between these two characters. Nothing. It says nothing beyond kind of mention their names. Like, that's it. And I was so put off by that scene. I was willing to give it time, but nothing came along afterward to give that scene any life or purpose. How dull is this movie, you ask? Well, it's so dull that even after Paul Newman lusts after his own daughter to the point where watching her sunbathe causing him to want to have sex with his wife, I still was so much more interested in talking about how bored I was than I am about the fact that this movie features borderline incest. I'm so obsessed with how boring this movie is that I'm burying the incest lead.
Burying the incest lead. Yeah, that when you were telling about that scene, I was just like, must have been a different time. I mean, I just can't imagine sexualizing your kid like that. I don't care how old they are. I don't. That's just weird to me. I mean, it goes without saying, really. But when you tell me about that, I was like, part of me was wanting to give it a shot because I like Paul Newman so much. But I just am like, you know what? There's a lot of movies I'd rather watch this week. Fatman looks like it could be pretty good.
I want to illustrate just this. This could have been just like they may not have intended to send this message. It's possible. I'm willing to buy into the notion that Merchant Ivory didn't intend to imply that he was turned on by his daughter, but this is the sequence as it goes. She goes to the room. The daughter leaves the room to go outside to sunbathe. She's laying on a towel in the yard. She undoes her top and lays on her stomach, and her exposed back is to the sun. And Dad goes to the window, peeks out, and continuously looks around and peeks out and looks at his daughter. And he's becoming agitated, uncomfortable. And as if he doesn't want anybody to see him, looking at his own daughter, who is named. The scene then takes a turn when his wife walks in, and he doesn't startle, but he steps away from the window quickly and prevents his wife from seeing what he's been looking at. And he's so insanely turned on at this point that they immediately have sex. Now, just basics of film language tell you that these two things have to be related just because they've happened in order visually, very much implied. What else are we supposed to take from this?
Maybe when he looks at his daughter, he thinks about the moment she was conceived. I don't know. So he just goes back there. To me, if I was looking out in the backyard and my daughter was sunbathing, my wife walked in, I wouldn't try to hide that I'd seen my daughter in the backyard sunbathing. I wouldn't think anything of it because it's just a person that I happen to be related to sunbathing. So, it doesn't, it's just gross. And
it is. I don't understand how this is in a movie just 30 years ago. And nobody bats an eye. Nobody thinks anything of it. I think because most people were asleep by the time this scene came on. I'm thinking that's gotta be it. Because this movie is a sleeping pill. It truly is a sleeping pill. It is incredibly dull. To the point where I'm more upset about how dull it is than I am about him lusting after his daughter.
What's weird is you said burying the incest lead, and if I make that the title, everybody's going to assume I'm talking about the Hillbilly Elegy, and I'm not.
Which contains zero incest
at all
somehow.
Maybe it wasn't all that Hollywood elite. Misery, 1990, directed by Rob Reiner and starring Kathy Bates and James Caan. James Caan is an author who is in the Rockies to finish his latest novel. He's finished it. He's about to make the drive back to give his novel to his agent, played by Lauren Bacall. He gets into an accident and is rescued by a woman named Annie, played by Kathy Bates, who turns out to be his biggest fan, by her words. She's read all of his books about this character named Misery, who he has recently decided to kill off. And when she finds out that he killed off her favorite character, she decides to keep him there forever to make him write a new Misery novel and bring this character that she loves back to life. The whole thing is set in this one house, and is the horror of one person enacting their will on another person who
happens to be completely helpless. There's certainly a great deal of horror to be mined from that, and Kathy Bates delivers a performance that is genuinely scary. She's really great at being, not intimidating, but crazy, just kind of crazy in a way that is unsettling. And you could imagine being a little bit afraid of her, even if she does have this also sort of matronly quality. James Caan is not the most likable guy, but he's good enough at being in this situation. Pretty much anybody's going to have your sympathy. So that works in favor. The best character in the movie is Richard Farnsworth to me, Buster. I enjoyed him more than anybody, and I was so mad at what happens to him. He didn't deserve that, and I thought the movie really did a disservice to the entirety of the production by doing him the way they do. Do I like Misery? I think I do. I think I like it to a point. I don't love it. I think there's one particular unnecessary bit of plot that I shouldn't care about, but I do, and it's kind of the hallmark of a movie that isn't quite working for me. And that is that this novel that he's written about this character Misery, that he's killed off, has been out for a while. And he's supposedly the biggest Misery fan in the world. She's got a fan wall, everything, and she's just obsessed with it. And yet somehow she didn't run out immediately and buy this and already know that he'd killed off the character of Misery before she then ends up rescuing him and kidnapping him and taking her to her home. She didn't already know this. She just finds that out while he's there. Like, that's a weird way to put this. Why not have it be that he's writing the book in which he's killing Misery, and that's how she finds out? That seems a more direct way to get to the point where you want to get to.
Yeah, they did a really sloppy job with that.
Yeah, it's a bit of unnecessary complication that's in here that's really not needed, and it took me out of the movie a little bit.
They could have easily had that it just got released, and I think it does, because they do later on talk about the convenience store clerk and, I always reserve one for her as soon as it comes out. And in the book, they spent a good time talking about how she got the first round of copies, and so it was a new release, but they do not. It's at best a throwaway comment in this movie.
Well, it's like a retcon, really.
Right.
Like, they realized what they did and they went back and shot this scene to cover it.
And here's the deal. I went and read the book this week only because Josh last week shit all over this movie, and I was like, well, I thought I liked Misery. So I wanted to see what he saw that, I disagree with him about Kathy Bates. I thought Kathy Bates was fantastic and deserves any award she got. You're right. The sheriff was the most fun part of the movie. He was definitely the most likable character. And James Caan's perfect for what he's supposed to be. Kind of a dick, kind of a, egomaniac, but helpless.
Yeah.
And I don't think the movie holds up well, but I do think Kathy Bates' performance, I think the performance was due. I just think it's dated just kind of when it came out. It could definitely be remade and probably be a little bit better or scarier. But at the same time, the whole premise is kind of, you got to just kind of go with it. He happens to get in a car accident and get rescued by his biggest fan. When you're reading the book, you don't even think about it. But when you're watching it in a movie, you're automatically it's harder to buy into it. And, when he's writing Misery Returns in the book, he starts to fall in love with it. And that actually keeps him going and it gets him stronger. And that's how he escapes. Here he's doing it just to piss her off so he can burn it in front of her. He doesn't burn it in the book. He burns like one page just to trick her, but he ends up burning a bunch of blank paper. Obviously, yes, the book's better, but at the same time, it's easier. You're not going to question things in a book as much as you will in a movie, or it's harder to get to that point. But I still think Kathy Bates is an iconic horror villain in this role. I mean, my son, he did not watch the movie, so let me stop there. But he had been in the car while I was listening to it. But when I say I read the book, I did the audiobook because I only have so many hours in the day. But he was in the car with me and he listened to part of it, and he wanted to watch the trailer, and I was like, I'll let him watch the trailer. And he knew right away who she was. And I'm like, how do you know who that is? And she pulls up this YouTube videos of all these iconic horror villains as cartoons in like a death battle, like this big Royal Rumble type thing. And he was like, yeah, she has a sledgehammer. I was like, yeah. In the book, she has an axe.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's. And when instead of killing him with a shotgun, he runs over him with a lawnmower.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the book is better, but I still think part of this is really good. They rely on the scene that bothers you, or the premise that bothers you, as that's kind of the moment where she starts to go crazy. And in the book, he knew it almost right away, because she comes and goes. And to me, they didn't need that. There's things that they could have done different. And I hate people who go, "Oh, the book did it this way." I hate that. But since Josh did it last week, I just wanted to know for myself.
Yeah.
But I still like it. I still enjoy it. And the imagery of her, just the imagery of her in general, her performance, the way she acts, some of the scenes are iconic and memorable. And for that alone, I like this movie. I didn't love it as much as I wanted to, because it has been a long time since I've seen it. I don't necessarily want a remake, but I think you could if you really wanted to. But even then, the premise is so weak that it's not necessary.
I think Rob Reiner does well for the most part. I think he has a certain, like, when you talk about the darker elements or the more violent elements of it, I think he has a squeamishness that comes through. I don't think he wants to go as far as obviously what Stephen King was going for.
Right.
And I think that element does hamstring the movie a little bit. It makes it seem a little safer than it should be. The sledgehammer scene is still powerful. It still has a real gut wrench to it. But I think an axe would probably make it a lot more horrifying.
And that's the thing, too, is I'd almost say, if you really think about it, cutting his ankle off versus hitting with a sledgehammer is probably less. It's probably better, It's going to be better imagery, it's going to be scarier if you have blood going everywhere than her having to burn cauterize the end of it. That would be horrifying to watch. But if you're going to have something happen to you, you're probably better off having your leg cut off than what she does to it. However, It doesn't necessarily, the way they do play. I was listening to it with my wife, and she got really squeamish in the car when they were going over the scene. And then when I watched it, it really does. It is a little less when after reading the book. But again, I think she deserved, if she won the Oscar that year, I think she deserved it. Because it is a pretty memorable performance. And that's one thing I'll disagree with Josh on. I thought she was great. But Rob Reiner is kind of, he makes a watchable movie, but he doesn't necessarily make it's not The Shining by any means.
Yeah, I think he's much more along the lines of a very, very similar to Ron Howard.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
These really safe, nostalgic, non-thought provoking movies that I think that's kind of their wheelhouse, and they take things that could be maybe good and kind of bland them out for a wider audience.
Yeah.
That Hillbilly. I'm not sure. I can't say the Hillbilly Elegy is actually any good.
But he's made good movies before.
Yeah. That is the point. I'm curious to know. I'm looking it up right now. Who Kathy Bates was up against? Actually, a movie we're going to talk about next week, The Grifters, with Angelica Houston. She was nominated for that performance. Joanne Woodward was nominated for Mr. and Mrs. Bridge, which just goes to show you how old the Academy always has been.
Was Annette Bening nominated for The Grifters?
She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Julia Roberts for Pretty Woman, which and actually the one that should win, that's the best performance of this group, really, for me, is Meryl Streep in Postcards from the Edge. She's
really that. Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, that's one of my favorite Meryl Streep performances. So yeah, I flip a coin in my opinion between those two. I do think the Kathy Bates character is more iconic and lives on a little longer. Not necessarily for, more in a pop culture way than I guess in an artistic way. But, I do think it comes down to those two. But I guess I'll have to rewatch The Grifters. I did like it when I saw it, but it's been a long time.
I'm really excited about it. I didn't realize it was nominated for Best Director, Actress, and Supporting Actress. And Best Adapted Screenplay too. Wow.
Yeah, and I didn't know Annette Bening made I didn't really know who she was till she did that stuff with Warren Beatty or Bugsy or whatever, and then American Beauty. Obviously, it was. Then it was like, oh, she made this movie that was, and went back and watched, and I was like, wow, this is pretty good. So I'm excited about. I mean, she's full frontal in it, so that was exciting. Was not expecting that as a 18, 19-year-old. Anyway, did you see Hidden Agenda or Descending Angel?
Hidden Agenda sounds familiar, but I don't remember.
All right. Then we can end the show. Next week, we have Mank, the David Fincher movie on Netflix. Black Bear, I think Audrey Plaza again. The Sound of Metal and Minor Premise. Does that sound right?
And The Prom.
And Prom?
The Prom on Netflix.
The Prom. On Netflix.
Starts on December 4th on Netflix. So they were very busy. They're opening 2 movies the same day, which is odd, but it's Netflix. They don't really care about the same day openings, I imagine.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of movies that are coming out December 4th. Ammonite comes out. That parody movie that you're talking about with the surviving skills or whatever.
Yeah. That
comes out. So there's a lot that comes out December 4th, but these are the 5 for now that we're going to talk about. Michael from Galesburg, this is IVNV name. He's going to join us. Michael Carlson will be on the podcast. He's a big fan of the Grifters. Our classic's going to be Citizen Kane, because Mank's about that time period and about the writing of that script, I believe.
I'm excited. I've been listening to a biography of Mankiewicz and his brother, both of the Mankiewicz brothers, that was written just recently, and I'm fascinated. I've been fascinated by their lives, and of course, there's been movies made about the making of Citizen Kane as well. RKO 321. I can't remember the exact name, but Liev Schreiber played the lead character, and I think John Malkovich played Mankiewicz in that one. So it's a fascinating story of how Citizen Kane came to be, and I'm definitely excited. And of course, it's David Fincher. Obviously, how can you not be excited about what Fincher is doing?
Yeah, did you see the article Brad Pitt said was what it's like watching a movie with David Fincher?
No.
Oh, he compared it to like watching a basketball game with like Michael Jordan or LeBron James. He can't watch it and enjoy it. He's constantly, talking about, analyzing the look
look what that's wrong with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and he's known for doing 60 takes and stuff like that. So, I mean, a little full of himself. But I still love most everything he's done, and even the ones I don't like, I appreciate.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking forward to next week.
I feel that way about Benjamin Button all the time. I don't like Benjamin Button, but I appreciate so much of it because it's so skillful, even as it is kind of aimed towards nothing in the end.
Right. 1990, The Grifters, obviously, and The Rookie also comes out.
I'm really excited about The Grifters, honestly. I think I've seen it before, but it's been a long time, and I certainly had no memory of its Academy reputation, which it didn't win anything. It won 0 awards, but was nominated for the top 5 categories, top 6 categories. So,
well, 1990 is. I mean, it's one has Goodfellas, so right there, it's a good year. But even Dance with Wolves isn't a bad movie, and I understand why it'd be nominated and stuff. So I mean, it's kind of a good year for movies. Ninja Turtle sadly wasn't nominated.
It should have been. Slotted in there in place of Dancing with Wolves for me. No, I'm kidding.
All right.
Maybe better, maybe different than Awakenings. We haven't watched Awakenings yet, so I don't know. It was Dances with Wolves beat Awakenings, Ghost, Godfather Part 3, and Goodfellas for Best Picture, which, Godfather Part 3 gets in basically a reputation. Ghost is just a really likable blockbuster, and it's not a great movie. Yeah. This is reversal. Jeremy Irons won for Reversal of Fortune, which is bizarre to me. The actors in Goodfellas get absolutely no love aside from Joe Pesci winning. You don't hear anything about Ray Liotta, not a word.
Ray Liotta,
and somehow Richard Harris gets nominated for a movie nobody's ever heard of. Gerard Depardieu gets nominated for
Green Card.
Nobody remembers.
Yeah.
And De Niro for Awakenings.
And Awakenings is it's just a safe movie. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've seen that one as well. But
I guess we still have that one coming, right?
Yeah. It's the end of the year. And I'm curious what this Godfather saga thing that Coppola's redoing. Apparently, it changes Sofia Coppola's performance. It makes her better, according to Diane Keaton. So
I heard the Diane Keaton thing. She said she cried. She said she was so excited. This is some of the best work of her life. Which, I mean, I've seen. You watch Diane Keaton for the last 30 years. It's not a high bar. That's right. I'm singing Diane Keaton on this show. What do I do about it?
No, but if you go back 40, 50 years and you throw in the Woody Allen Godfather stuff.
But the last 30 years have been really, really bad.
Yeah. All right. I want to do a little flick chart.
Sure.
The Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 1, or The Ref?
Hunger Games.
Yeah. And that's it. We're done now. That's coming. Chinatown or Top Gun?
Chinatown.
Agreed. Die Hard Part 2 or Gandhi?
A bad movie or homework? Damn. Give me the bad movie over the homework. I'd rather have the 90 bad minutes of Die Hard 2 over the 3 hours of endless mind-numbing drama that is Gandhi.
Never seen Gandhi, but I did enjoy Die Hard 2. After hating it, I hated it my whole life. And then when we get to the podcast, and you and I flip-flopped. Oh, this is a fun one. United 93, Jackass the movie.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God. I don't even know what to say to that. Wow. Let's compare Jackass to 9/11.
That's a problem with flick shirt.
I love it. I think United 93 is a very good movie, but I'm not going to watch it ever again. And whereas if somebody put on Jackass right now, I'd probably sit through that. So Jackass wins.
I think you're right. I did watch that HBO documentary about Action Park or whatever. I thought that was pretty fascinating. I'm assuming, I don't know if you saw it or not. I mean, I know Johnny Knoxville made that movie based on it, but
which is really a weak facsimile of what actually took place at Action Park.
Yeah, Donald Trump almost invested in it, and he goes, "No, this is too much for even him." That's part of the movie, the documentary.
That's a great anecdote. I know you don't love it anymore, but the dollop just did definitive for me. That was just so funny what they did on Action Park. That's really all I need. That's why I actually haven't taken the time to watch the HBO because I feel like I've got it already.
Yeah, I mean, they more or less you just see. I mean, basically the fact that it was run by teenagers is the most fucked up part.
Oh, so it's comedic, just the level of dumb that went into that.
Avengers, Age of Ultron, planes, trains, and automobiles.
Avengers all the way for me.
I don't like Age of Ultron, so I'm flipping. You win. Even on...
Apparently there's a different version of planes, trains, and automobiles out there. I've seen this YouTube video pop up. I haven't watched it yet, but apparently there's an entirely different version that apparently is much more of a straightforward drama as opposed to the broad comedy. I don't know.
A friend of mine just showed his kids it, and they all loved it. I don't like love it, but I don't have the hatred for it that you do. Risky Business, Scream 2.
Scream 2's not bad, but Risky Business is risky business.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of obsessed with Rebecca De Mornay. I mean, as good as Scream 2 is, I think it's probably a better movie. Man. But the subway scene, Risky Business, Jesus Christ. Whew. I'll never forget that.
I think.
Whereas I forgot a lot of.
Yeah, Risky Business is way more iconic than Scream 2 is.
Man. I feel like a perv if I go with Risky Business. I'm going to go with Scream 2 because it's a better movie.
I'm going to go with Risky Business.
I can't justify that I'm not being just purely period interest when it comes to Risky Business.
I mean, I'm going to go Risky Business just on the memorable factor alone. I mean, who hasn't seen Tom Cruise slide into a room in underwear and a t-shirt?
And Rebecca De Mornay, aside from just the subway thing and her just astonishing beauty, she is amazing in that movie. She's really great. It's a great performance. Scream 2 is a really good movie. People sleep on that. That's a really good horror movie.
No, I agree. But it is more forgettable, largely due to Scream. But I flipped it and Scream 2 won. Lucky number 11, Clerks 2.
Ooh, two really good movies. Two really, really good movies. Clerks 2.
I agree. I like Lucky number 11 a lot, but I'm part of that demographic for Clerks 2.
It just hits that sweet spot for me of just being that's my. I just love that movie. It's my humor all the way.
Yeah. The Road Warrior, Scrooged. Yeah, Frankenstein, 1931. Ghost World, 2001.
Boy, that's tough. And I probably watched Ghost World, so Ghost World. As much as I appreciate the achievement that is Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, I'd probably pick that over Ghost World just because of the filmmaking achievement of it. But there's something just really iconic and memorable, obviously, about Frankenstein. It's lasted 80 odd years or so. Yeah. But yeah, I love Ghost World a lot. I watch it immediately.
I agree with you 100%. Thank You for Smoking, Hellraiser.
Thank You for Smoking.
The Adventures of Tintin, Better Luck Tomorrow.
Which one's Better Luck Tomorrow? I don't remember.
2003? I have no idea. I'll just pick a new one. Adventures of Tintin, A League of Their Own.
A League of Their Own.
Disturbia, Hall Pass.
Hall Pass. I like Disturbia, though. The Hall Pass has a shit joke in it that I actually laughed at, which is so very rare.
I feel like you and I are the only two that like that movie.
I feel that way, too. Like, most people do not care for that movie, which is fine by me. It's just Jason Sudeikis. I just kind of go with that guy.
Yeah. Spider-Man, Far From Home, The Whole 9 Yards.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, I do like The Whole 9 Yards, though, and I don't know why. Aside from the Pervy part.
Sequel.
I guess the whole 10 Yards does suck. Constantine, April Fool's Day, 1986.
Constantine.
Yeah, April Fool's Day pissed me off. In Her Shoes, Dead Poet Society.
Dead Poet Society.
The Manchurian Candidate, Batman Returns. Oh, the Denzel Manchurian Candidate.
Oh, yeah, that's a little weak. Batman Returns, which I keep forgetting. I keep mixing it up.
Michelle
I can't do
Pfeiffer,
it.
Danny
I can't
DeVito.
remember. Oh, yeah, and that's the one I definitely hate. Yeah. Shit. I don't know. Manchurian Candidate isn't very good either. It's got Denzel and Meryl Streep. Manchurian Candidate.
I'm going to flip it because I don't hate Batman as much. I mean, I know it's bad, but for whatever reason, because I saw it at such a young age, I just forgive it. Wedding Crashers, a Sum of All Fears.
Wedding Crashers.
Agreed. Star Trek Into the Darkness, Super Troopers.
Star Trek.
Agreed. The Great Escape, Hulk, 2003.
Yeah. Great Escape?
It really comes down to whichever one was shorter.
It really does.
Source Code, Artificial Intelligence.
That's tough. I really like both those movies. Source Code.
Never seen it, so I'll just pick it for you. Deathgasm. I'm assuming you haven't seen that. 2015.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Evil is Coming, spelled the fun way.
No, I've definitely never seen that.
Triple X, The Proposal.
The Proposal.
Yeah. My Fair Lady, Apocalypto.
My Fair Lady.
I'll flip that one just for fun. You win again. A Few Good Men, Hitch.
You good, man.
Agreed. Mamma Mia, The Manchurian Candidate, Denzel.
Once again, we're in a situation where that movie is very good, but it's possibly better than the movie that it's up against. So, Manchurian Candidate. If it were Mamma Mia 2, which is actually a good movie, I'd probably pick that.
That Thing You Do, Meet the Parents.
That Thing You Do.
Agreed. Dark Water, Star Trek The Motion Picture.
Oh, Dark Water.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I hate Star Trek: The Motion Picture so much. Although I had a very memorable time watching it. My sister and I just hating every second of that first 20 minutes and just wanting to turn it off. That experience is better than anything else, but no, it's a terrible film.
All right, last one. This one's tough. L.A. Confidential, D2, The Mighty Ducks. I kept waiting for United 93 versus...
United 93 versus Mighty Ducks.
Right, or Jackass again or something, but... it wasn't coming. So.
Man.
All right. Anything?
Do you think Star Trek fans jerk off the first 20 minutes of Star Trek? I'm guessing what they do. I think that's why that's there.
I don't. Maybe. I can't. I suppose everybody has their own thing. It's like their own. Paul Newman looks at his kids. Star Trek fans watch the motion pictures.
Star Trek fans, if you can confirm that, just go to Twitter and tell you masturbate to the first 20 minutes of just them showing that stupid shit.
Such a boring waste of time.
Oh my God, it is endless. It is Mr. and Mrs. Bridlettle Bell.